that childhood feeling of accomplishment when you began to recognize your name and then to write it yourself? Recognition is one of the first reading skills most of us develop, and is the skill we're going to focus on in this tape.
There are 5 basic strategies a student can use to help him recognize or remember a word: sight, phonics, word patterns, context, and word parts. Let's look at the first 3 strategies. Perhaps the most common strategy used in recognition is sight. A student can learn a word by sight by seeing it often enough so that he's able to recognize it instantly when he sees it again. This strategy is useful for words that appear frequently in reading and writing, for important job-related words, for words that appear on common signs, or even names of family and friends. As a person becomes a more skilled reader, most of the words he encounters will increasingly be sight words he has already seen and knows.
A second strategy is the use of phonics. A student learns sounds that are represented by letters. He is then able to blend those sounds together to form new words or to match the letters to a word in his speaking vocabulary. For example, phonics, phonics, and video, video.
A third strategy is the use of word patterns. This strategy is related to phonics, and it enables a student to sound out a word using familiar groups of letters rather than each individual letter. For example, a student who has studied several words with the patterns R and un will have little trouble using his knowledge of patterns to figure out this word, cartoon.
We're going to see an example of a student working on these first 3 strategies. Kurt has worked in a large auto repair shop for several years. He'd like to earn more money, but a promotion would mean having to be responsible for inventory and ordering, and he doesn't think he can read all the forms he would need to do that.
When Kurt shared his problem with John, John suggested they could work at learning to read the inventory forms and parts lists. But first, he asked Kurt to help him understand more about his job and what he does. Since Kurt had mentioned a brake job he had done that afternoon, John asked him to describe how disc brakes work. As he talked, John wrote exactly what Kurt said. They practiced reading it together, and now Kurt is reading it himself.
Okay, that was great. Now, let's have you give it a try.
Front wheels mostly have disc brakes. That's where you need most of the power to stop. The disc turns with the wheel.
John is using what we call language experience. He's finding out more about Kurt's job, and he's beginning to identify the words that Kurt will need to learn. Kurt already knows the words brake pads, disc, caliper, and hydraulic fluid. He uses his listening and speaking skills to communicate this information to coworkers and customers every day.
John's goal is to build on what Kurt can already do, talk about his job. Together, they're now beginning to build the bridge from being able to talk about these important words to being able to read them. Let's watch as they finish the passage and see what John decides to do next.
Against the disc. Kind of like squeezing the disc between 2 hands, and that's what makes you stop.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but I don't really think I can read all these words.
I mean, you don't think you could read them if you saw them alone?
Yeah, right, or on a list of parts.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's work on that. Which words would you most like to be able to read?
All of them. Well, these here seem to be the hardest, like hydraulic fluid.
Okay.
And
Caliper. Here, let me try it for you. Caliper,
caliper, this one,
piston,
piston, this one here,
cylinder.
cylinder.
Okay, now, you had a little bit of trouble with the word pressure also, so let's add that to the list. Now, what I'd like you to do is to take these cards and print each of the words on separate cards for me. All right, hydraulic fluid,
Hydraulic fluid,
all right, let's see, caliper,
John knows how important it is for Kurt to make decisions about his own learning.
caliper,
So most of the words that Kurt is working on are ones he chose.
It's also important for Kurt to copy the words himself. He'll have a chance to practice writing them, and he'll also experience the satisfaction of reading them in his own handwriting.
Okay, now let's take the first card, let's place it under the same word in your story, and then read the word.
caliper,
Good. Now lay that card aside, and do the same with each of the other cards.
piston, pressure, cylinder, the long one, hydraulic fluid. That cylinder is a hard one to remember.
Why don't you draw a picture on the back of the card? Maybe that'll help you remember.
I really can't draw. Well, I suppose it looks something like this. I suppose that'll help me remember.
Really, that's all that matters. Now, what I'd like you to do is to shuffle all these cards and then read each one. You can look back at your story if you need a little extra help. Okay.
Caliper, piston, cylinder, pressure, the long one, hydraulic fluid.
Now, listen, that was very good. Now, remember, these are your cards. So take them home, practice with your story with them, bring them to the next session, and we'll work on them again until you know them all by sight.